This is Sybert signing in once again to Kane's Wrath with bike-RUsh+ownz as the red. Is Zocom on the left side of Tournament Rift? Of course, everyone's favorite map. Cyan Blackhand is going to be Orion on the right side, and I do believe Orion is in fact playing random, which means he's like, hey, you know, since I know that my opponent is going Steel Talons, I know Zocom, not Steel Talons. Just kidding, that's not a combat engineer. He's going Zocom. I can go ahead and push my early game, or push my infantry a little bit, just so long as he does not get overwhelmed by like 2 squads. He should be absolutely fine. I do believe is it 2 squads or maybe it's 3 squads that if you start shooting first as GDI, you will actually win versus Confessor Cabals, because otherwise it's just like, oh hey, Confessor Cabals, yeah, it kind of looks like that, where you lose like maybe a quarter of your health. Instead, going to be sending scouting squads all over the place. Orion actually being a little bit gutsy here, sending down a second engineer. That's 500 credits. He could have saved himself and a little bit of build time as well. Could have sold that barracks off a little bit earlier. Instead, he did go ahead and build up that engineer, and oh, he does shoot first. 1 squad will not even go down with those 3 squads. Must have been 2 squads. If you shoot first, you can take down a Confessor Cabal squad. This engineer squad should be able to clean, oh goodness, the squad of 1, because, you know, that totally makes sense. But this Confessor Cabal, those Confessors up there, will be able to own everything, and dropping down his war factory within range of that refinery. I do believe, not like good old Orion over here. He instead is going to be dropping down his war factory a little bit too far away, but he does get spotted by that initial raider buggy, which is not going to do a whole lot of scouting because bike-RUsh+ownz should be able to clean it up. No, just kidding, he will not be able to. He will be able to clean up those Confessor squads. And where did that buggy go? It actually going to be doing its proper job as a scout. And actually, wait a second, where's that engineer? Okay, so the engineer is actually in this APC. Keep an eye on that one. If only, but it would be great if we could like tag units in game and then just watch those tags. Like, okay, this is the guy with the engineer. This is the awesome veteran guy. So that would be, hey, anyone from EA listening, which of course they're not. Why would they be watching this? That would be a little bit unusual, or at least a little bit surprising. That would be a cool feature to see in the next game. But Scorpion tanks will be able to hold off these APCs, or will they be able to hold off the engineer with those mines dropping down and actually kind of working against him? Not really at all. Was able to grab 1 refinery. Will he do anything with that build raise? Even grab the harvester just at that docking point. Will he be able to get any cash in before he loses that refinery? 2 war factories do go down. Too bad he couldn't grab the MCV. And the missile squad even going to eject on out of there and then do a little bit of damage, get a couple of shots before getting horribly maimed and run over. Just sell the refinery right now before it gets capped back. Sell it, bike-RUsh, sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it. bike-RUsh, you haven't sold it yet. Sell it right now. Oh, I think I know what he was trying to do. I do believe he was trying to wait until the last moment, sell it right as the engineer enters the building so it kills the engineer. Is that still a thing? Or did they patch that out years ago? Dropping down another MCV because he actually sold off his initial MCV just to get that engineer. That is kind of a risky move, and when I say kind of, I mean it's really risky, because now Scorpion tank's rolling into his base. Orion is out for blood. He's like, hey, you took my refinery and my harvester. I will now murder your entire base because that seems fair. Just kidding. This is Command and Conquer. That's what we want to see. Mine's going to be able to do quite a bit of damage to those Scorpion tanks, able to do a little bit of damage at least. Even a rocket squad getting in on the action, and this MCV is going to be deployed right there, possibly trying to go for that tier 2, although that would be a little bit silly at this point, with Scorpions knocking on his door, most likely trying to get up a second refinery. Scorpion tank's going to be swinging down the south side, not even going to be bothering with that Tiberium spike. Once again, reverse moving away from danger is what you're supposed to do, not always what we see you players do. And actually still not able to place down that refinery. He just has no money. 2 harvesters at this point. So basically, bike-RUsh is actually in a pretty terrible position, just now getting up to those 3 harvesters with Scorpion tanks in his base, but pretty good micro, keeping his units alive and running them around the side of that war factory is exactly what you want to do. If he could swing around and get on the rear armor, that would be even better. This 1 Scorpion tank being kept back by Orion, so good on him. And decent focus firing out of not a Blackhand player, but instead bike-RUsh+ownz able to snipe that. Oh, 2 Scorpion tanks, although this one was lagging behind a little bit, so an easy target, but good on bike-RUsh, able to snipe down a couple of those Scorpion tanks just for freezies, basically, while they were trying to retreat and pull on out of there. But now we are finally up to a decent 4-2, although at this point in the game, considering what the time code would be, if I could see a time code, that's another feature I'd like to see, a nice in-game timer. At least on the replays, CNC4 does in fact have that, although it does count down instead of counting up, because, you know, of the way the game works. But it is going to be more Scorpion tanks over here, or, well, rather, the same Scorpion tanks re-engaging the MCV, trying to use their own buildings against them just so that these units can't attack them. And actually, both of those APCs do have rocket troopers inside of them, missile squads, which will allow them to, I do believe, gives a damage and also a range boost to them. But one more, no engineers, bike-RUsh, you fail me by not placing another engineer into the base of your opponent. I would like to see something absolutely silly and wonky, deciding not to go for that early black disciple upgrade like we have seen in several games since, or rather in the past, not really since, but instead lots of harvesters out of Orion. He's up to at least 5 up here and at least 3 more down here, so a total of 8 harvesters, which is not too bad of a count. Some players do push it up to 12, and neither player quite yet going to be harvesting that center blue field, as some of them do like. Once they set up here, they do go ahead and send the harvesters over here. Of course, blue Tiberium does give, I believe, double credits. Well, I know it's double credits, but I do believe it's 2,800 credits per load, and green Tiberium is 1,400 credits per load. So, you know, hey, it can be worth the investment, although not necessarily, because the travel time between the two bases, that is pretty far. I think green, depending on where the harvester is going for the green Tiberium, if it's going down here, might be actually worth it to just go ahead and get that blue Tiberium. Scorpion tanks going to be rolling up on the north side of the base, and once again dropping mines down. bike-RUsh, you have to hand it to him, dropping those mines down, but he needs to pull back his APCs so that he is actually able to do some damage with the mines versus the mines just, you know, being laid down and the APCs pushing forward. Scorpion tanks microing back around, but he should be able to keep most of these Scorpion tanks alive if he properly reverse moves, but actually more of the APCs with a couple of those rocket squads inside of them. And oh, the spacing, oh, the pathing is so bad in this game, actually able to do splash damage on those tanks, even though they physically should not be able to stack up like that. So actually working in his favor, those bad physics, sometimes they're your friend, and sometimes they just totally own your 2 Scorpion tanks and allow your opponent to do even more damage. And a couple of rocket squads will get run over. Decent split by bike-RUsh, keeping his rocket squads alive, but oh, those Scorpion tanks reverse moving over the rocket squads and able to take them down, just weakening the army of bike-RUsh a little bit. But more APCs and still no AP ammo. What is this, Tiberium Wars? Buy that AP ammo upgrade and do way more damage to those Scorpion tanks, but just massing these same units. Both of these players are stuck in their ways. They are rather hesitant, at least, to actually change the units that they're building. You think Predator tanks might do a little bit better, but of course APC is a little bit faster to build and of course cheaper. If he can push in and do some serious economic damage, it might be worth it to just sack these Scorpion tanks if he's able to actually do some serious damage like he's not doing right now. Going to be calling in an Orca strike, which of course with those Orcas from Zocom, they do have some sort of special shells that I forget the name of, but these Scorpion tanks one by one getting whittled down and now going to be showing their rear armor to the opponent and trying to swerve around the damage while these Scorpion tanks over here getting split up a little bit. Zone Shatterer is on the map now, going to be able to do some pretty heavy damage to those Scorpion tanks. Just kidding, because it did get taken out, but no, finally getting that AP ammo upgrade just a few moments ago. The Scorpion tanks do have those Dozer Blade upgrades finally, and Hammerheads are now on the field. But just kidding, because the center blue field has been taken by Orion, and he does have, I do believe, that Black Disciple upgrade. I don't think he has Purifying Flame just yet. Oh, wait, he is Black Hand, that's right. But no Purifying Flame upgrade quite yet, or at least I would be surprised if he did have it. That's quite a hefty upgrade to get. and going to just be going for the man spam. So this game basically non-stop action, and can he make it work with the hammerheads? We do have rocket troopers inside of them, and they are fully upgraded. They've got the zone trooper composite armor. And do we have dual MCV? No, not quite just one MCV, but enough hammerheads in mass can do absolutely crazy amounts of damage. We have seen that out of Green Zero, but it is not going to be working for bike-RUsh in this game. Scorpion tanks just being thrown into the midst of the Lion and just being snatched up right there, while the infantry, on the other hand, are going to be doing the actual damage to the buildings, I'm guessing. No, just kidding, because the APCs are going to be rounding the corner and tearing up these infantry if they can actually get a decent split and not take splash damage from the stacking. Good micro by bike-RUsh, pulling back the weakened units to keep them alive and do that extra damage, and also the ones that have veteran missile squads in them, so he's keeping them alive. But the push out of Orion is a little bit inevitable. A slight frame rate drop, possibly from some sort of radar jamming missile, although that is totally just a guess. I really have no idea what would cause that. APC is going to be swinging around the south and actually going to be selling off his base defenses, because basically Orion has been cleaned up, and bike-RUsh able to hold on despite the fact that Orion does have, well, at least he is about to have a massively overpowered economy, taking that third base before bike-RUsh can actually fully harvest his own second field. That natural expansion is going to be still harvesting for a few minutes yet, and the Tech Center could actually go down. These two Scorpion tanks might be whiffing it away in a long time, not in a short while by any means. But one engineer squad and a couple of grenadiers and a rifleman squad, maybe. I guess our rifleman squad actually doesn't want to get inside the MARV. They're like, hey, we don't want to be in a super tank. The super tank instead going to be going for the Tiberium, or is he going to be going for the battle? He is going for the Tiberium. He doesn't care what is happening in the mass exodus of rifleman squad. I do not know what they are doing. They're just going to be running over here for absolutely no reason, probably getting crushed by that harvester a little bit. But they are here to take on the infantry, the mass infantry of the Black Hand of Orion. Orion actually going to be able to do an insane amount of damage to this MARV. He is just dropping that health like there is no tomorrow, with those Black Hand squads actually able to do a little bit of additional damage and not focusing down the rifleman squads, which are actually what is owning all of his units and going to be able to stop him from actually killing that MARV. A few more shots will be able to take it down. We'll go ahead and turn health bars on just so that we can watch this MARV's demise, while the rifleman squads do get all the way up to that heroic, or that epic status. No heroic status, and the MARV will just barely survive, while on the south side, Scorpion tanks going to be engaging, but the MARV is really what we do want to watch. Hammerhead's going to be just saving that MARV mere hits away from going down and just exploding and fire. The Scorpion tank decides not to actually crush anything. SAM turret's going down, but a flame tank on the south side will be able to clean up those Tiberium spikes. No problemo, and the Scorpion tank push from Orion did come to basically nothing. He was able to do some damage, but a sonic emitter ultimately stopping him in his tracks, while on the north side, the MARV has not gone down, instead pulling back for repairs. Hammerhead's going to be running around the map just to do a little bit more damage, and these rifleman squads were the rifleman squads who couldn't. They were not the little rifleman squads that could, because those rifleman squads are not dead because they could. But also this single APC surviving quite a long time with that fully epic missile squad inside of it, and actually getting a little bit hoarse just from all the yelling I've been doing from these pretty awesome Kane's Wrath matches. Hammerhead going to be heading down to the south side, possibly just to get in some scouting, just to see, hey, you know, how much stuff does my opponent have? Does he have anything over here? What is his base defenses like? And all of that jazz. Can I engage? But we are going to be having 6 harvesters and just 1 refinery, of course, still keeping his MCV up and running, because that's always good. This one Scorpion tank, he is angry, but he's also incredibly stupid, because you do not engage those 3 APCs when you're like 6 hits away from, I mean, I'm pretty sure that if you just like came up and threw a paper ball at that Scorpion tank, it would have died. And it's like, hey, I'm going to take on 3 APCs. Hammerhead's pulling away just at the right moment. We got 3 SAM sites spread across these bases, giving us pretty even coverage and possibly the least effective way to get from one side of the map to the other, but not quite. This flame tank actually going to be able to do a fair amount of damage. Mass sell-off of these units, of those buildings. 2 power plants do go down, actually dropping them into that low power state before he switches all of his power, and actually going to be zone raiders on the scene, able to do a little bit of damage. Just kidding, because they've got terrible aim Flame tank finally does go down, while on the right side of the map, bike-RUsh+ownz going to be cleaning up the rest of Orion's southern expansion. Turns out SAM turret's pretty terrible versus ground, but slightly better Arconfessor Cabal squads, and the tier 2 will go down, nearly resetting the tech for Orion. Orion is going to desperately need to rebuild these power plants, most likely if he loses them, as those upgraded power plants and non-power plants are pretty weak anyways. They will go down, and then you'll enter that low power state, which is oh so pesky, dropping those build times down. And of course, obelisks will get taken out as well, dropping into that low power state, and he is going to pull out of there. bike-RUsh+ownz does not want to challenge that obelisk. It will basically one-shot almost everything from like their tier 1. And we are going to see once again the battle of those epic units. Look at that close-up. Oh, that is so good. But the zone raiders, are they going to be enough? No, because the raider buggies, everything has zone or raider in it. But the hammerhead's going to be showing up and completely overshooting that single unit and sniping all of the raider buggies, just keeping those EMP blasts down. And the MARV is going to be taking quite a bit of damage from these infantry, which are really going to be the orbital drop coming down. Orbital strike instead, going to be doing quite a bit of damage. But the rage generator, will it actually do anything? No, not really, because everything is already dead. Rage generator able to do a little bit of damage to these units possibly, but more likely the SAM turrets will be able to clean up these hammerheads with very little trouble. The Redeemer does go down, not the Raider Redeemer, but just the Redeemer does go down, and the hammerheads getting taken out. Those zone trooper bodies falling to the ground as well, and the APCs just show up out of nowhere to be like, hey guys, what's up? We're gonna, shoot some stuff now. Zone and that one raider buggy actually able to do quite a bit of damage, and they will be able to, these infantry units will be able to pick off a couple of these APCs before they un-EMP and actually come out of that. And there's that APC. He's just going to show up out of nowhere, and I really have no idea where bike-RUsh still is getting all of these APCs. He just gets free APCs apparently in this game. Heavily damaged Conyard, and he is going to be long distance mining off of that blue field in the middle with a little bit of green in there, because hey, a harvester got taken out, and that is what happens when you try and long distance mine. But one single raider buggy standing by. He's just going to be waiting for his opportunity to shut something down. Firehawks instead going to be the unit of choice for bike-RUsh+ownz. Will he be able to do the damage he needs with those Firehawks, or will they ultimately just kind of become a flop? That is going to be the question, and if he can actually lock down these harvesters, that would be annoying, although not really worth it to lose that raider buggy. Instead, infantry going to be swinging around to the south side. This base is completely undefended for bike-RUsh+ownz. If he does not get some units down there to save him, he will be in a lot of trouble, and even bringing a rig out just for the additional repairs, although I think you can, yeah, you could potentially use both of the War Factory and the rigs repairs to super repair that MARV, because, that's a good term. Just add super to something. Not quite able to grab the Conyard. Instead, he was able to most likely grab the Operations Center, because as long as there is no Tech Lab, there is no more Redeemers. One of the, I guess, kind of downsides of being Nod, you can't build those darn Redeemers without the Tech Lab, although it's kind of really GDI who are the odd ones out. We're going to be packing back up to move along. The MARV instead going to be doing some damage to these infantry squads, and that rig is just inside of the MARV like a giant, some sort of a carrier of sorts, and that was a horrible sentence. Zone flying bombers. Zone bombers going to be heading out and selling off that refinery just the perfect time. Orion paying attention like he should, and that EMP buggy possibly glitching out. It looked like it should have locked down that MARV, but it didn't actually, and some of these blasts are completely wrong. The EMP buggies being completely useless in that engagement, and the MARV actually going to be turning around. Not even the rig took very much damage. It's still alive and healthy, and APCs showing up. Do they have anything inside of them? No, it does look like they are mostly just going to be empty, and those zone raiders actually doing quite a bit of damage to those infantry units. A decent choice. Firehawks are now back on the scene, and they are going to be able to do probably something in the south side, but instead massive amounts of infantry. If he can divide and conquer, he might be able to take down the MARV with the EMP blast. The rig will go down in a matter of moments, and then the MARV will shortly follow suit. but the Firehawks are flying overhead and distracting all of those infantry. They're like, hey, we got the stuff on the ground that's going to kill us. Oh, hey, look, a shiny flying object. Let's all shoot at it because the MARV is not dangerous. The MARV is now back firing to his south, but instead hitting infantry to his north, well, his northeast-ish. Despite the fact that his barrel wasn't even pointed that way, that is totally okay. We totally forgive him. And massive amounts of infantry getting stacked up, but will the EMP buggies be good enough? No, because the focus firing out of bike-RUsh+ownz is too good, and this EMP buggy swinging around the side will not be good enough, getting dangerously close. But with the infantry taking massive amounts of damage, look at all of those dead bodies as they disappear into the ground. And that was just a huge strike by bike-RUsh+ownz to those infantry. If you can actually hit infantry, Firehawks are better against buildings than they are against units, but generally infantry with that splash damage that the Firehawks get, boy, when they actually hit something. If they just hit dirt, it really doesn't do anything. But if they actually hit something, they do massive amounts of damage, kind of sacking two of those Firehawks to kill off that massive amounts of infantry. Could have actually saved him this game. It's just the single producing off of that Hand of Nod, not an optimal situation. Where did these Firehawks go? They are now going to be heading down to the southern field to take some damage from the SAM turrets, possibly. No, they're actually going to be swinging around north and hitting that Tiberium spike and then heading on home. Did not actually have enough to take it down. The scan does go down, revealing that, hey, there is more stuff on the way, but was he able to? Yes, he's up to tier 2, so Orion is set to go ahead and build up that tier 3 to try and get out another Redeemer, but even the Hammerhead that just spawned, he spawned basically firing his guns, which is a pretty baller way to enter the world of Command & Conquer. You just kind of get generated up in the sky, and then you just, from the moment you enter the game, you're just firing your guns, blazing into glory and all sorts of stuff like that. And this Harvester is probably the saddest Harvester ever. He went down all the way over here and then grabbed like 2 crystals of Tiberium and he's like, hey guys, I got some Tiberium, guys, and basically everyone's dead at that point. All of his friends are horribly murdered by the Firehawks, unfortunately for him. Orion's still going to be going kind of strong, but there's not a whole lot of Tiberium left on the map. Just kidding, because it's all in the starting locations. Well, at least for Orion, his tip fields have actually been sitting stagnant for so long that they have been rebuilding, or rather respawning, and actually leaving a refinery here. Somehow we managed to hold on to that, so brilliant play by Ryan, and still no one has taken this Tiberium spike. Kind of strange to see that far into this game. Just kidding, because bike-RUsh+ownz is going to be claiming that Tiberium spike with his engineer right there. He just wanted to clean out the opponent so he didn't have to do any sort of silly microing around the backside of that Tiberium spike, which only works sometimes. It works most of the time, but a Mantis even coming out to play, not a unit you see very often, and unfortunately no Tiberium core upgrade for Orion. It would be absolutely detrimental to bike-RUsh+ownz at this point, but bike-RUsh still going to be moving strong with his heroic MARV. Not quite to that epic status, but a little bit better than that veteran status. Grabbing that Tiberium spike is going to be a slight but a nice econ boost to the... They look like those squads just appeared out of nowhere, but it will be a nice slight econ boost to bike-RUsh+ownz, and bike-RUsh not deciding to engage with all of those infantry there, and still no Redeemer out of Orion, although he does have the tech lab up. Does he have the cash to actually warrant building an expensive Redeemer? And instead, he is just going to be building more Raider buggies, trying to make it work with the cheaper infantry, and he does get the lockdown, bringing an extra Raider buggy around the backside. So now he is going to be having 2 Raider buggies within proximity to that, to the MARV to do some damage, but the Firehawks are going to be swinging in. But with the Mantis here, will they be able to actually do anything? No, because they're not firing their bombs. They're just going to be doing absolutely nothing, crashing and burning onto the ground, able to drop down even an obelisk in the time of need. And this MARV has taken absolutely critical amounts of damage. Hammerhead's going to be swooping in here to try and do some last-minute damage to those infantry, and actually able to do quite a bit of damage and completely destroy the majority of the army for Orion. As we head into like the 80-minute mark on this game, these two players so evenly matched that neither one of them can really get far enough ahead to make a difference and win the game. But even this Rocket Harvester going to be getting a little bit in on the action, trying to do damage to that Black Hand Harvester, because unfortunately Black Hand do not have stealth, but that probably would be a little bit overpowered if they did. Can you imagine like stealth Reckoners with a bunch of Black Hand squads inside of them? I imagine that would be a pretty powerful unit combination, and it would be pretty awesome, although I guess if you're in a 2v2, you could do that. Anyways, Purifying Flame upgrade's so good. I wish people would get it more often, but it would be absolutely terrifying in those situations. And the Rage Generator does go off. Actually will affect those units way the heck out there in the boondocks. They will, well, rather in the, sticks of this map. In reference to that, Redeemer and even a Hammerhead does go down. Sad state of affairs, and force firing on that little patch of ground. Not that he hates that patch of ground, but he just doesn't want that Rage Generator to affect his units, even though it already kind of did. But of course, if your units are attacking something when the Rage Gen is launched, then they will continue attacking that something, and then eventually, if they kill whatever they're attacking, then they will go on to attack their friends. But if they're attacking the ground, it just kind of never dies, which is a nice little, I don't know if you'd call it a bug, but it's a nice little workaround. It's definitely not a bug. It's just a good move or a good play by some people. But Spectre's now going to be out. Long-range bombardment from Orion, going to be able to do some damage to not only the MARV, but the APCs as well. And it will not last very long, especially when you send them out unprotected. What are you doing? Is he just going to go for the buildings? I feel like that might be the better choice, and actually he is. Just take out the production structures of bike-RUsh+ownz, and then he won't be able to build anything, and that is a pretty good way to win, is if you can build stuff and your opponent can. Trying to force fire onto the ground to do some damage, but it doesn't actually work out for him. That rarely actually works. Able to snipe one Hammerhead, and APC is going to be heading to the front line with that rig, and the MARV is going to be sweeping around kind of from the south. More infantry in support of bike-RUsh+ownz, but the Redeemer is going to be sweeping around. And actually, Orion's forces are fairly well spread out in about 3 different pockets. And the Shockwave Artillery, is it going to be good enough? No, yes, it is actually going to be good enough to totally lock down that Redeemer. And the units are now all firing, and the MARV is at that epic status, because that is awesome to see. Well done, the bike-RUsh, able to keep a MARV alive long enough to get up to that epic status. And he's now going to just be sweeping into the base of Orion by the looks of it. Going to be heading in with not a lot of support. Actually going to be doing kind of a pincer movement, 2-prong attack. And just kidding, because all of the APCs are going to be like, oh, hey, we don't actually have any real fire support. We're just going to be doing some damage to the infantry. All of the infantry are like up on the north side of Orion's base, so I guess a brilliant move by bike-RUsh+ownz, actually able to bring in the army of his opponent along the north side, so then the obelisk was completely without support, and now effectively dividing and conquering, even with Raider buggies trying to make a last-ditch effort to do some EMP damage, and the Spectres even getting mass taken out by those APCs, which I guess is not really massive APCs since there's only 4 of them, but it's really hard to stop an epic unit. And it does look like bike-RUsh is going to be able to win the game. Orion having to cede defeat. Too bad for him, but that was really a pretty awesome game by both of these players. A pretty quick beginning, and then the action just did not stop. That is what we call high octane, and somehow Orion able to get so much money, he just wasn't able to make it work, and that is exactly why, if you look at that, he was able to get way more money. Look at that, 3,000 more credits per minute, almost exactly, than bike-RUsh+ownz. But he was throwing units away a lot, and that is evident by the key unit kill-to-death ratio. Overall, 231,000, almost, well, I don't want to say almost twice, because that's actually not twice at all. 300,000 would be a little bit closer, but 231,000, a pretty good number for a 27-minute game, and both of these players pretty evenly matched. And goodness, Orion, look at those graphs, just huge drop-offs, while the bike-RUsh graph is a little more conservative, less drop-offs, but it ended up working out in the end. Structures, basically, apparently he had no structures at the end, and okay, so that works. But that is going to do it for this match. This is Sybert, signing out.